Hello and welcome back to Veteran Instincts. This week we are going to continue with the theme of looking at the new ships, taking the Imperial Interceptors for a run out against what I think is the most interesting part of the new scum box, the Hawk. We actually have two games for you for the price of one this week, both within the same video, the reason for which will become clear as the first game unfolds. Joining us today to take on the might of our very own Lloyd Boman is Dale Cromwell. Hello, Dale.
Hello, guys. How are you?
I am good. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, in this first game, we are looking at you with a triple I6 Imperial list. Talk us through it and tell us, was this something you're excited about as soon as you heard the contents of the new pack?
Yeah, sure. As a lot of you know anyway, triple aces is kind of one of my things. When I heard that there was another I6 interceptor, super excited because the third ace is always the tricky one because you have to go at I5 and decide if you're going to go Inquisitor or Whisper or Duchess. So to have one that was 6, so you can choose the order how best suits you, was super exciting. So we ended up going with Sienna Ree. So we've got Suntir and Darth Vader, pretty standard. Afterburners fire control on Vader, and then Predator on Suntir. Popped a shield upgrade on both just to get the points up there. And Sienna Ree is the replacement third part for me anyway for Duchess. She's got the maneuverability and the better board information being I6. So proper excited to run this list.
And sort of the elephant in the room there is her pilot ability, which you didn't reference. And there's been a fair bit of chat about it in the community as to how much of a problem it is. And so, talk us through the ability and then give us your opinion on it, really. I think everyone will be super interested to know.
For sure. So I'll read the text for everyone in case no one knows. So Sienna Ree is an I6. Her ability is, after you perform an attack, if the defender was destroyed, gain 1 stress token. And then the second part of her ability is, after a friendly ship at range 0 to 3 is destroyed, remove 1 stress token. So, you're absolutely right. Could argue that both of those abilities are bad because to lose stress, you've got to be falling behind in the game. And to get ahead and destroy stuff, you've got to risk double stressing yourself, which is never good for an interceptor. My initial thing is, whilst it is maybe not the best ability in the world, it's not exactly Suntir's, it does come with a cost reduction to give you that I6 reposition. And definitely if you think of how you fly aces before you had 3 of them at 6, is you just shoot first with that one because it will be Vader or Suntir that gets the kill shot in this sort of list. If Sienna ends up being the one at the end, absolutely, being double stress could be bad, but at that stage of the game, you'll be 1-on-1 or 1-on-2, and we just have to play to those strengths, I think. In my opinion, definitely worth it, and especially if you make sure you shoot first with her.
Nice. And we'll probably go into that a bit more as the game goes on. But Lloyd, jumping over to you, a bit of a mix of ships there. Take us through your list and the kind of ideas behind it.
Absolutely. So running Kannan Jarus in the Hawk with the Moldy Crow title, so he can stack defensive tokens. And then his ability is, while you are a ship in your mobile arc defends, you may spend 1 force. If you do, the attacker rolls 1 fewer attack die. And so potentially quite a powerful debuff ability. And so I've doubled down on that with Maul Crew. So he has 2 force each turn. He regens 1 a turn, but if he is taking damage, he can use that Maul ability to gain a stress to actually regen multiple force per turn. So that ability, if you're shooting at Kannan, just stays on for as long as you need it to. Paired with that, Fenrir with Fearless, just so that I can have an I6 ace in here to threaten Dale a little bit. And then Nom Lum is the third ship. And part of that is because I knew I was playing Dale in this game and I knew he was going to be running interceptors. Normally I might have been looking at Tarok, but running an I5 Fang against 3 I6s, I must admit I slightly counter-built knowing it was Dale. So we have Nom Lum in the Jumpmaster with Proton Torpedoes, Auto Blasters, Sun Vessel Crew, and Contraband Cybernetics. So just trying to make Nom a threat both in the blocking game, but also to give him some real offensive punch as well if needed.
Nice. And we can see the obstacles down here in the first turn of the game. Dale coming out quick there from your corner, and Lloyd looks like you're rejecting the joust, at least with Fen on his own. Dale, in terms of the obstacles, which did you bring, and did you like where they ended up on the board?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've got the more manoeuvrable ships, so obstacles never really affect me massively. I like gas clouds just because Darth Vader can do his shenanigans off of them for sure.
And Lloyd, turning away from the joust, obviously with Nom in that opposite corner, you don't want to be engaging with anything other than your full list. And rocks-wise from you, we know it's something that you think about a lot. What was your kind of plan here, and do you think you kind of achieved it?
So what I wanted, knowing the way Dale tends to open, where he'll come fast with all 3 ships and then sort of bank or turn them in and just try and swoop everything in together. I sort of built a map a little bit like I was flying against a swarm. So the 2 obstacles that are both in the centre of the board, one at the top, one at the bottom, I think I placed both. And that was just trying to limit slightly the channels that Dale had to turn in and just give me a bit more time to get an engagement that was a bit more favourable. And then in terms of setting up, obviously all of my ships are setting up first. So I'd set Nom up in the bottom corner. And then looking at it, was very concerned that Dale was going to set up directly opposite Nom and joust into my list. And I think that joust is pretty unfavourable for me. And so then spent some time working out how to keep the other ships just far enough apart that I could run with Nom if Dale set up in that corner. And then, of course, he set up in the other corner and I immediately didn't like where any of my ships were. So this is a kind of furious attempt now to try and get back into a position where I'm not having a single ship getting engaged by Dale's entire list. So this is already onto sort of plan 3, as it were.
And Dale, looking at the positions here, Kannan is looking, to me, a little bit out of position. It's going to be slightly tricky for him to be in a place where Fen and Nom can cover him. The gas cloud means it's difficult for your interceptors to get directly at him. But I was wondering about the 1-hards to the right here. Did you consider that, or is there the risk of getting flanked by Nom and Fen too high if you try and duck back into the centre of the board?
Yeah, at this point, I'd already half realised I needed to get rid of Kannan soon as, and got Vader in between those to try and cut him off at the pass there. But no, it was not the best positioning. I didn't really think about cutting in because Nom with protons was a bit scary. So I kind of was just debating if I would just bank in or straight just to come back in again on the next turn, really. This was a bit of a tricky turn about deciding what to do and didn't want Vader to get stuck on his own either.
And so what do you think your options are then, given that sort of slightly tricky position that you're in?
At this stage, I was hoping that Vader could put some chunk into Kannan before Fen and Nom caught up. But the interceptors, I think I was debating just to slow roll to stay far enough away from everyone, but still give a chance to boost in around the gas cloud after.
And absolutely, and there's very few ships that want to be sitting range 1 of Vader, right? Even Fen, with his native defensive ability and his extra dice, still doesn't want to be there because those crits can really cause a mess of things, right?
Yeah, although he's got a decent chance of shrugging it off. You only need that 1 crit to go through. Reduces agility, make his hard turns difficult. There are a number that going to make Fen's life very, very unpleasant. So Lloyd, I was worried looking at this. We see the bank coming in here from Nomlum, and I was just about to say I didn't think you could hard turn towards Vader because it just gives the flank to these Inquisitors. What was your kind of thinking behind this, and what was the plan? Are you just trying to get the Hawk back towards your list as quickly as possible at this point?
There's an element of that. There's a couple of things I'm trying to engineer. So what I don't want is Fen to get picked off easily, because Fen is the only real significant endgame threat I have in this list. Nom needs to be either at range 0 of something or at range 3 of something, ideally. And so I was trying to engineer that engagement with him. Because at range 0, he's blocking ships, and so then Sienna ends up with no tokens, Soontir ends up with presumably just his focus. At which point, I can threaten those ships. But if I end up at range 1 of everything, there's a reasonable chance that Nom just gets taken off the table. And obviously Dale has a lot more control over that than I do. The numbers are just about in Nom's favour to survive. He should end up on about 1.5 health if he takes a range 1 shot from everything. But that's close enough that I don't really want to test it with a 60-point ship. So trying to engineer an engagement where Nom might take some damage but isn't going to take a significant amount. And then for Kannan, essentially hiding behind this gas cloud, it was a little bit of, as I say, a plan C. So kind of don't want him too far away. Want him to bring close enough in that he can use his ability with his mobile arc, protecting the rest of the ships if they take shots. Obviously, his ability is always active for himself, but just limiting all of the shots into any one ship. And so far, with that Vader turn in while the interceptors went wide, that's looking pretty possible.
Yeah, and so we see Vader coming in there. Was there a temptation there, Dale, to switch targets and lock Nom? Or is the range 1 just too nice to pass up against the Hawk?
Yeah, I mean, this is first time us using new stuff, and I knew that Kannan would start reducing my attack, so I needed to make the most of any range 1 I could, really, because it's not even a range 1. All my range 2 plus attacks are going to be pea shooters again.
And we can see the Interceptor's coming in here. Quite an aggressive move there from Suntir. Looked like he was probably at range 3, but has boosted into range 2 there, taking the evade, going to be double tokened. And again, the focus and barrel roll here from Sienna getting her Predator lined up. And we're into the first round of firing. Fen shooting first, got range 3. Suntir, obviously the better end game ship, but sitting there on the focus evade, Lloyd decides to go for Sienna. So we're looking at 3 dice into 4, focus on both sides. An initial roll here of 2 crits, which is not bad at all. And deciding not to spend that focus, obviously with the potential of a lot of heat coming back in, and a poor early roll there from Sienna, having to spend the focus to only take the 1 damage, which thankfully, due to that shield upgrade, isn't going to be a crit through to hull. But that's no tokens left for offense or potentially defense with 2 more shots that could be coming into Sienna. And a nice early shot there from Fen.
Yeah, that's a shot where, regardless of whatever Fen rolled, he was never going to spend because he's got 2 shots coming back. I would much rather Dale is shooting into Nom than into Fen at this point because Nom can weather it. And if Fen takes anything significant here, then that's my chances in this game significantly reduced.
Absolutely. And then we're on to the triple I6s. And Dale, you were sort of saying at the start, this is a list that kind of plays to your strengths. And you're all about jousting with aces, taking things off the board. And obviously having the 3 at I6 means that you can do that versus almost any other ship in the game. Got the Predator reroll there, crit and 2 focuses, and really feeling having to have spent that focus on defense. And Nomlum with the 3 dice, even with 1 off the board, gets his evade and doesn't take any damage from that opening shot. And then we see the first use of Zam here. So Zam reveals that You Should Thank Me, takes a target lock and recharges a charge. That target lock obviously could be significant in a moment because with those proton torps, they're now on and still at this point potentially double modded. Nice shot from Suntir though. But unfortunately, Dale not quite giving Lloyd time to trigger Kannan there. So Kannan has Nomlum in his arc, is able to spend a force to reduce this to 2. We get Hick focus and a Predator reroll here in a second to see if Dale can keep that focus. Rerolls into the focus and decides to spend anyway, which I think is sensible given that Sienna has no tokens and since it's probably a little bit less valuable a target. Oof. And 2 evades on Nomlam. This turn already looks like it is not going well for Dale. And then the range 1 shot into Vader here. Again, second charge from Kannan spent. So only 3 dice rather than the 4. Able to convert to a crit with the ship ability and then spend 2 force for 3. But 2 paint there from Kannan and only 1 damage done. And I think already we're seeing the power of Kannan here. That's 2 dice reduced from the incoming attacks, and as a result, only 1 damage done across the list. And still got 2 scary attacks coming in here. Kannan deciding to maul, takes the stress to get that force back. And Lloyd here, you've got a choice with Kannan. Are you firing into the ship you've already damaged, the tokenless one, or is this a good opportunity to try and punch Vader in the face?
It's exactly that. I mean, all of the ships are pretty hard to hit at the best of times, but anytime I have 4 modified dice into a ship, I'll take it pretty much. That's a pretty strong reason not to.
Yeah, possible argument to say that maybe is greedy and you want to be taking a ship off. But with the fully modded Proton Torp coming into Sienna with 3 health, maybe I can kind of forgive that on this occasion. But only 2 hits from the attack, and we do get the 3 evades there. But this is the Proton Torp coming in. You guys are moving through these attacks quickly. With the reroll and the Proton Torp conversion, we get hit crits. Ooh, and that's a hit crit. In fact, that was a reroll. Too many dice rolled because no range bonus from the Proton Torps, and that is a dead Sienna. Wow, that was quick.
I should note that she was allowed to remove her stress at this point.
Absolutely.
And then died.
And that's, I think, the value of Zam Crew, right? It's such a good card, and we've seen it, I mean, almost everywhere in scum lists at the moment. It gives you so much utility and catches people out if people haven't played against it.
Yeah, I was like, at this range, I'll put some pot shots into Nom, and that was totally not worth it, obviously, apart from doing no damage to a jump master, which gives me PTSD a little bit. But to not have done anything and then set up the return shot that would wipe her out is, terrifying.
Presumably that wasn't a choice. You were like, oh, it doesn't matter. It was just not realizing what was about to happen.
Yeah, it's like you need a target lock to fire a proton, so I'm not getting proton. I'm getting a 2 dice shot back. So at that point, I was thinking, worst case that Zam lets you double tap, and a double tap with just a 2 dice primary is not really that scary at range 3. But to actually help set him up for a double modded proton torp is terrifying.
Yeah, and so I was about to say that we'd got Sienna removed from the board without seeing her ability, but I was wrong. You were correct. She removed that stress before leaving the board.
She did, and that's the positive part of her.
So what's going through your head at this point, Dale?
This is not gone to plan so far. So I guess one of the things with how I do it, or right or wrongly, is that you got a lot of high pierce ships putting a lot of damage in early doors and either wiping stuff or nearly wiping stuff out, and you need to converge on one target really. And I tried to be a bit clever with getting some damage into Kannan. But it just shows the strength of the list, really. It really does reduce that incoming fire. Throwing 10 dice and it's dropped down to 8 to do a total of 1 damage. A lot of those shots, apart from Sienna's, are double modded. And even some of them were full hits and to not do anything. It's the tipping over the edge, isn't it? It's the 2 dice attacks becoming 3 and the 3 dice attacks becoming 4 that push that damage through. And you're just taking the cream off the top, really. And it's showing in the longevity of the list.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Nom rolled decent evade, and having to spend that focus on from the initial shot from Fem was perhaps a bit unlucky. So your damage output could have been a bit higher, but it was never going to be significant enough that the position you're now in would be okay. And it's that unexpectedness of a new list, right? Not aware of Zam, relatively new card in the game, and certainly Kanan's one of those cards where you read it and you understand what it does, but it's only when you see it in action that the full horror is revealed. So with your play style, when it goes wrong, is it fair to say that it sort of goes spectacularly wrong? How do you come back from a bad position?
I mean, it's very much Blaze of Glory kind of stuff. But one of the other sides of it is that any one of those ships can still win you the game. Lloyd was saying that he needs to protect Fem because Kannan and Nom aren't endgame ships, but Suntir is, so is Vader, and Sienna, whilst probably the worst endgame ship of it, for her to soak up that opening engage and be the one to lose is the best one for me to lose, because Vader and Suntir have won me more games than I can count. So it's not a lost cause all the time because any one of those ships can bring it home for you.
Absolutely. And so we see Lloyd's moves coming in here, just sort of taking up that space in the center of the board, of not giving you many places to go. In fact, very difficult to see how either of your ships doesn't bump here. The Fen position here is interesting. I think I was sat looking at it, Lloyd, and a little bit worried that Suntir was going to bump, get his focus, and have a free shot into the side of you. And what was kind of running through your head in terms of like action selection here?
So my initial approach with all of the dials I set on this turn, Kanan's was essentially decided the turn before because I'd taken stress to recharge Maul, so I was pretty certain he was doing a blue maneuver. Nom, as I say, wants to be either range 0 so that he's taking away mods from things, or wants to get his auto blasters or his proton torps off. Now, obviously, auto blasters are much scarier when he's behind things. So at this point, he's most useful to me as a blocker. And what I was actually looking at here was Vader K-turning, because Vader already has a lock on Kannan, and so it's the easiest way for Dale to keep guns on that ship. And so my original plan was to roll left and block the K-turn. But once I'd positioned the first 2 ships, I looked at it again and reassessed and decided actually that the K-turn felt too risky because it was going over the debris. It didn't offer perhaps enough benefit. And so then looked at it, reassessed, and decided that getting into range 1 of Suntir, though it would give him his Predator mod, it gives me a lot more benefits. And so if I'm trading range 1 shots with Suntir, that's now in my favour.
Absolutely, and that's what we see coming here. That barrel roll nicely getting you an arc, and we get a good 3 hits plus the fearless for 4. Again, deciding not to spend the focus, and it goes against my rule of Fen, which is always spend it if you can, but perhaps not a terrible decision. Although having said that, Suntir, more sub-average evade dice there from Dale. Rolling 1 and taking 3 would have been a dead Suntir should you have spent there. But as I say, I can kind of understand the reason not. The chances of killing Suntir were low, and you don't really want to be sat there just relying on Kannan and the and free evades to get you out of trouble. Vader here, now bumped into the ship he's got a lock on. So 2 dice primary, which goes down to 1 with the Kannan force spend. And this is range 3 into Fen. He has to spend that focus to not take it, but a bit disappointing. But we're really seeing the power there of Kannan. He's blocked, he's taken away Vader's ability to take a new target lock, and then to add insult to injury, reduces him to a pitiful 1 dice. And this Suntir shot, you feel, has to hit big. Looking slightly tricky from Dale at this point. 3 dice again because of the reduction from Kannan. Man alive, that's depressing. Gets the reroll, spends the focus. That's certainly aggressive, but I think kind of needed to be. But rolling 2 evades with his 4 dice at range 1 and with the free evade, Fen does not take any damage. And we now have a tokenless 1 health Suntir. Looking at 3 dice from the Hawk. Ooh, and it's going to be 3 hits. Suntir needs natural dice here to survive. Does not get it. And is that a dead Suntir on turn 2? I believe it is. And we've still got a shot from Nomlum. So range 2 auto Basta. Oh, well, at least that's not hit too hard. Only the 1 hit. And Vader here, spending a force to survive. Now, Dale, you were saying that any one of these ships could win the game for you.
Yeah, it has to be Vader now.
Yeah. It's easy, right? Now you know.
Yep.
I think that's a very fair point. Obviously, this is going horribly wrong at this stage, but I think it's a very valid point. We've spoken a lot a few weeks ago about target priority. There's a bonus attack here from Nomlum, forgetting all about Zamcrew, but rolls blanks and doesn't take anything. Yeah, so we've spoken about target priority, and Lloyd accurately identifying, that Fen is his endgame ship, and we can see 2 opportunities where he could have spent a focus there, both declined, and I think that's right. I think, from Dale's point of view, any one of his ships could deal with a full health Nom and a low health Kannan, or vice versa. Once Fen has got that, you really do, Dale, only need that 1 ship. So I think Lloyd's been doing the right thing to keep Fen safe there.
Yep.
And a combination of just misjudging the abilities in that opening engagement, and then as a result ending up in a horrible position for turn 2 has meant that already 3 turns into this game, it looks like it's kind of done.
Mm-hmm.
So the game continues. Vader actually makes a decent fist of at least attempting a comeback, but as a sort of competitive exercise, we kind of knew this one was done. So what we did was we went ahead and got the guys back a couple of days later, Lloyd running the same list and Dale having switched to a new one. And that's what we're going to go on to next. Before we do, Dale, with that in mind, you've played this game, it's not gone great, but you know you're facing Lloyd's list again. From a kind of list building point of view and an approach point of view, what are you going to try and do differently in this next game?
So, as the ship count of my list gets less, the power of Kannan gets exponentially more. So I thought my better chance would be to go for something with more ships to spread out that worry about Kannan reducing my attack. So I put that a lot into, along with using the new pilots to show. That was what went into my thought process for the next one.
And Lloyd, this has obviously gone incredibly well. Couldn't have hoped for it to go much better. Knowing that the next game is going to be versus a swarm, I think you'd played a couple of games with Kannan before this to kind of practice with him. How much do you think he does suffer as the ship count goes up?
A lot of 3-die guns is definitely scary for Kannan. I mean, it's scary for almost any list. But as the ship count goes up, the initiative comes down. And Kannan is only initiative 3, but against generics, that potentially becomes very valuable. Because though Kannan isn't an enormously agile and maneuverable ship, he does have a pretty open dial and does have a boost. So he has the potential to arc dodge fairly effectively. So I think a higher ship count is definitely more of a problem for him, but it's not necessarily guaranteed death knell for him. I think he definitely still has value there. I think it does change the role that Nom has in that matchup, certainly. Nom, in this game, has the potential to be a blocker and really limit Dale's actions. But in a game where Nom is moving second, that value completely goes away and Nom's value goes down significantly. The Zamcrew will still help, but he's just a piece to trade in that game. Whereas in this game, he's much, much more of a control piece. And Fenn's role remains the same. Fenn just has to stay safe enough until he's able to just duck in and out and kill ships as he did in this.
Yeah, and I think a sort of a comment on this game from me before we jump over to the next one. I think it does, Dale, you were saying, sort of show what happens when your approach goes wrong. And actually, I think I've watched a lot of games of yours where my initial assessment was like, oh, wow, that's a bad trade. You kill a single generic and you lose one of your aces. And that feels bad and you're down on points. But actually, on a lot of occasions, it's fine because what you've done is reduce the number of opponent ships to a manageable amount for your remaining aces on the board. And then you proceed to kind of clean up over the next sort of half an hour. Obviously, in this case, it didn't go well enough at all, and you'd done no meaningful damage after that first turn, and we saw what happened. So I think that's a good point to go ahead and jump to our second game. This is going to really confuse anyone that's skipping through the video, but should have watched it all. And we'll go ahead and do that. So here it is, for the first time ever, Game 2. Dale, you're obviously the one here who's changed. We knew you were bringing a swarmy thing. Talk us through exactly what you've brought and what the idea of the list is.
So, first list, 3 ships. 3 ships bad, 6 ships good. So we've gone for double the amount of ships on this one. So wanting to try some of the new toys. So we have gone for Commandant Garan, a Nash Windrider, and some friends. Commandant Garan is pretty cool. He is initiative 4, and his ability is after a friendly ship at range 0 to 3 with a lower initiative than yours, partially executes a maneuver. So if they bump, they can perform a red focus action, which is super cool because when you've got loads of ships like I have and you don't fly loads of ships, bumping is immune, which is great. Then I've coupled that with Nash Windrider, who is the better version of Fel's Wrath from 1.0. And his ability is during the engagement phase, after a friendly small ship at range 0 to 3 is destroyed, if that ship has not engaged this phase, you may spend 1 charge. And if you do, that ship engages at the current initiative. So it makes it impossible to PS kill stuff. I've then coupled that with another interceptor at PS1, 2 strikers at PS1, just to see how easy it is to get off the Aerolons to kick in Garan for the red focus, then clear it with a blue and then take a second action. And then to fill it in with the points, we've just put a Academy pilot in there too.
Nice. And I said this as we were watching the game together, but whilst the viewers will know that Dale is a questionable ace pilot, I think what very few people realise is he is a bloody incredible swarm player. So I am going into this, Lloyd, very worried for you. Even more so with that turnout from Fenn. Talk us through the rocks here. What kind of engagement you're hoping for and what you thought you were doing with Fenn there.
So Dale placed the first rock, which is the big rock in the middle. And I must admit, I was quite pleased with that because it presents a whole area that all of his low health, unshielded ships can't go towards or can't go over, certainly. And then after that, because I have a big base ship that has a pretty questionable dial, spreading out the obstacles beyond that just kind of gives me as much space as possible and as many options as possible with Nom. As we said coming across, in this matchup, Nom has significantly less value, certainly. He doesn't have the ability to block anything of Dale's, and Dale has 4 blockers. So the likelihood of Nom getting actions once we get in close is going to be pretty low. In terms of Fenn, again, Fenn has a similar role in this game. I want him to be able to go in and jump in and kill ships and then jump out again and not take too many shots when that happens. And so the plan here was just kind of keeping him on the back line and giving him time to kind of separate out a little bit, let Dale commit to one ship or another, because Fenn has the ability then to just disengage from that if Dale goes hard for Fenn. The 2-turn barrel roll, I must admit, brought me a little bit closer than I intended in hindsight. I didn't quite anticipate Dale coming out as fast as he did. And so Fenn is already slightly closer than I want him to be and is already a little bit under threat. So that is the next part of the plan, is now work out how to make sure Fenn stays safe from all 6 of these ships swinging in towards him.
Yeah, and that's something we've spoken about, isn't it? We were kind of talking last week about our strengths and weaknesses, and And I think you're a very good player. I don't know whether I'm going to let that get into the edit.
Cut.
Certainly, something you do with some regularity is make that real firm guess on turn one of where people are going, and it's not super unusual for you to have to spend turns 2 and 3 fixing that initial mistake. As a result, you've got pretty good at doing it, and I think it's something that you often get away with and don't get punished for. But yeah, once again, it just feels like Fenn is probably going to now have to back off to the point where he may not be ideally positioned going into the opening. As a counterpoint, Dale, from the word, I liked your opening manoeuvres, the subtle things, but that first set of manoeuvres just slightly increase the space between the front line and the back line. Obviously going to make maneuvering them around easier, less likely for things to bump into each other. I say just after you've bumped the tie there.
That was just to practice the Garan thing, obviously. Because as you notice, he gets his focus anyway.
Yeah, he does get his focus anyway, absolutely. And I think, having criticised you in game one for not showing us the ability of Sienna, really, getting that in there early, just in case everything dies on turn one, is not a bad plan.
This is it.
But the other advantage of sort of spacing them out a bit is you have this staggered line. And if everything was within a range band of each other, was within a base length of each other, Fenn could perhaps consider YOLOing in, getting to range 1, just crossing his fingers and hoping his ability gets him out of the way. But there's no way that Fenn can approach this spaced out swarm, because if he's able to get into range 1 of the front line, he's going to have a bunch of range 2 shots coming at him from the back line, and that is something that he cannot deal with. So we see, Lloyd, here you're sensibly hard turning and barreling away, getting into a position to potentially duck back into your starting corner next turn. I like the barrel roll, though, rather than the boost. I think with the barrel roll, Dale at least has to consider the fact that you might come in, whereas if you'd boosted away, you really wouldn't have had much option in terms of coming back in next turn. So I like how you're doing this, and actually Fenn is now in a position where he's influencing the game. However unlikely it is that he's coming in, Dale just does at least have to consider it. So, Dale, both lists kind of starting to head in towards the centre of the board here. Looking at the positioning of Lloyd's ships, what are you worried about? Are you worried about Fenn? Are you thinking he might come in?
So, out of the last game, my main worry was that how much of a nightmare Nom was, and Kannan. But I mean, in the last game, Fenn didn't really even get involved. So I knew he'd want to be protecting Fenn, because at the end of the day, Fenn can work his way through the whole swarm, popping one ship at a time. But my main thing at this was putting enough pressure on Fenn to keep him running, but really sort of start to hone in on Nom and try and burn him down with the weight of fire.
Yeah, and Lloyd, I suppose, sort of similar question to you. Is there any world in which Fenn turns in here?
Maybe, but it's a pretty small chance. They would have to have a very good reason for not turning left for me to come in. So if Nom was further around the board, and if Dale turned everything left, he would have shots into Nom. Then Fenn might be more inclined to turn in. But at this point, from where he is there. So Dale has to consider it. But Fenn is 100% turning out of this. In terms of endgame ships, Fenn is the only ship I'm looking at as my endgame piece. And so this matchup, coming into this, engages how much can I trade Nom and Kannan for? And if I can take 2.5 ships off the table, then I think Fenn has got a pretty good chance to win from there.
Absolutely. And again, similar to last week, and something we find in a lot of 2.0 games, is it's going to be that combination of how much can you trade your big, easy-to-shoot ship for, and then how much of the game is left. Does Fenn need to score a few more points to kind of get you ahead, or actually are you up on points and Fenn can just run? And in which case, you're looking like you're in a pretty good position as it comes towards the end game. Looks like with Nom coming in here, we're going to be setting up for the joust. Kanan's ability, sort of hinted at it last time, I don't know if we sort of spelled it out, only works in the mobile arc, unlike a lot of the sort of initial Hawk releases. So he's maybe going to struggle to turn in, and is going to have to at least think about where that arc's going to end up if he wants to keep Nomlum safe. Very nice move there from Pink, using the ailerons to swing out and get into this lane along the bottom of the board. I like that a lot. I think it gives Fenn some real issues if he does try and get cute and turn down the bottom edge of the board. And it also gives Dale a nice avenue to swing him in next turn to get into the fight should Fenn run away.
Here's the first attempt to try and get the double token on the strikers there, bumping beforehand.
Yeah, and that looks like that's worked perfectly. That was something when you were kind of describing the list to me that I was I was wondering, we went through, didn't we, and did the maths and worked out that a striker with focus evade is slightly more tanky than an interceptor with just one token. But what we weren't sure about was how easy it was going to be to get that focus evade off. And so far, at least on turn one, you look like you've done it quite well.
Yeah, I think Dale flies these strikers with the competence of someone who's run a lot of Duchess. I think that really shows. This is not what it'd be looking like if I was running these strikers.
No, me neither. And so we're going to closing in here. Green and grey maybe slightly overshot, not arcs on to Nomlum this turn, but I think that was a kind of necessary evil because they're in a nice position to sort of sweep in next turn. Whereas if they'd gone a bit slower, they'd have got that range 3 unobstructed shot maybe, but would have had to deal with the central rock next turn. That would be a bit more tricky.
And so coming into this engage, just as you see Kannan bank in here, this bank, I think from memory, might have been a 3 bank, and it was done intentionally just so that Kanan's side arc just clips Nom, so that I didn't then have to spend a stress to rotate.
Absolutely. Keeps the arc where you want it for next turn, leaves you unstressed, and very nicely judged. Rest of the swarm coming in, all getting into position to come through this channel that Blue is heading towards at the moment. And Fen, as we all expected, and as indeed Lloyd said he was going to, just wheeling out and leaving the big boys to cope until it's a better situation for him to come in.
You can see me feeding Dale my ships in the order in which I value them.
Nom feeling a bit aggrieved at this point, wondering what management is up to. So, first shots of the game here, and a very good example here of learning. So, game one, Dale hadn't really played against Zam Crew very much, merrily taking shots, giving Lloyd the double modded Praetor Torp. But on this occasion, elects not to take that shot with Goran, and indeed doesn't take it again with the Planetary Sentinel. And that's really sensible, right? They were range 3 shots, and the likely outcome is that you lose a big chunk of one of your ships without doing any meaningful damage to Nomlum there. So a very obvious example, but for any new players watching, if you want to be good at X-Wing, practice. There is no substitute for it. Watch videos on YouTube, practice lots, and get to know these cards and what they do, so that you've got all of that learning out of the way in practice games, and you're not running into Nomlum in round 1 of a tournament and kind of coming away 0-1 and with a struggle on your hands for the rest of the day. So free shot here from Nom as a result of all of that. Nice 2 crits, but because of that focus evade, showing its worth, no damage done. And just a sort of, not really the first engagement there, just some sort of positioning and posturing. And coming into what looks like a much more significant turn next turn. And Lloyd in a bit of a tricky spot here, because I can't really see where Nomlum's going that isn't getting blocked.
Yeah, so Nom had a couple of choices here, and there was one thing that I slightly misjudged with Nom, and he potentially should have banked in slightly faster last turn. From here, his 4 forward and therefore also his 4K just don't quite clear that rock in the centre. I really like the idea of a 4K here if it cleared, because then it turns on my auto blasters for anything that's fired behind it, and I can potentially get unblockable damage into these ships. But as it is, it just doesn't quite fit. So I'm left with one of 2 choices. I can turn left so that I am getting shots into anything that's down there, but obviously Dale has complete control over that engagement. He's moving before me with 3 of these ships, and he can block me essentially wherever he wants to. Or I can turn right. Now I have contraband, so I can turn right, stress myself, rotate the arc as well if I want, and double stress, and take shots that way. That's going to limit the number of shots I'm taking. But I'm then only firing with a 2-die gun at range, possibly through an obstacle into things, and it doesn't really leave Nom anywhere to go from there other than just slowly drifting out of the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Double stress with his contraband gone. He's just going to fly slowly towards the edge of the board until he gets killed.
Absolutely, yeah. So his value, as I say, this game is very different, and I'm just looking to trade him for something. Now, if that can be one of the 2 named interceptors, then perfect. And if it's, at this stage, if it's the Academy tie, I'll almost take that. So he is going to accept the bump, he is going to turn in, and he's just going to trade shots. He is assisted again by Zam Crew, because he can take "You Should Thank Me," and that will give him a target lock on any of the ships that shoot him. And indeed, he can choose, as those shots come in, to transfer the target lock around. And so we'll still get a modified, presumably range 1 shot into the ship of his choice. The more important decision for me here is what to do with Kannan, because I don't want Kannan to bump and I don't want Kannan to also take a lot of free shots. So at this point, my main thought is not so much Nom, but how to get Kannan into a place where he is safe for the next few turns, where he can't easily just be turned on by everything, because this is too many guns for this Hawk to deal with.
Yeah, I think that's really sensible. If Nom goes down here, that's bad. If Nom goes down here and the rest of Dale's list has an easy turn in on Kannan the next turn, that's game over. So I think thinking a couple of turns ahead with Kannan is really sensible. And equally, Fen Rao still in a difficult position. Temptation here is to kind of feel like you're going into a bad initial engagement and that you need to get Fen in and shooting in the hope of kind of taking some stuff off the board. But it's still the wrong choice, I think. You know, if Fen is to turn in here, he'll be at range 3, best case scenario, range 2, more likely, and very easy for Dale to decide that actually, if you're going to give him Fen on a plate, then he is going to, enjoy that greatly.
Yeah, absolutely. If these were all TIE fighters, then the turn in maybe is more appealing, but with strikers and interceptors, again, the risk is just too high for them.
Dale coming in here, nicely hopping the Alpha Squadron over the top of the striker there. Perfect positioning for this Goran trigger on the striker. Just to be clear for anyone who hasn't seen that, the aileron with the strikers counts as a maneuver, and that's why that's triggering. So him sitting there at a perfect blocking position, double tokened, should Fen turn in or Kannan end up with him in arc. Bump here from the TIE Fighter, not a problem. Goran looking very good value at the moment. The amount of times you're getting the triggers is incredible, and we're not even in a situation to bump into your opponent's list yet.
Like at this stage, I'm super happy with everything. But this is where I think Goran will be super value, is that when you're piling in on something, even if that something is yourself, like it is now, it's not having the consequences of losing your action is super good here, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an 8-point ability, isn't it, over a generic saber, but it feels at this point like incredible value.
Yeah, I think it's how easy it makes the rest of the decisions. You know, often if you've got the approach slightly wrong, or even if your opponent has done a decent job and the approach is just that little bit tricky, you're kind of compromising between where you want your arc to be and getting all your ships out of the way of each other. So the ability to not worry at all about your ships getting out of the way of each other and just turn your arcs to where they need to be for that opening engagement does feel very powerful. And I think we're seeing a good example of that there. Confident boost in from yellow there. I was worried about where Goran was going to end up, but shouldn't have been, because wow, look at that for formation flying. You know, we've got the bump ability, but it doesn't work on Goran himself. And yeah, part of the Academy TIE Fighter has bumped into the back of that, but those 3 interceptors there are as close as you could possibly put them down. In fact, I don't even know in a real board whether I could put them that close to each other without bumping them. And this is looking pretty scary for Nomlum. I was interested to see what you say about the K-turn. I think the K-turn would have been super risky. I think it may well have ended up on the rock, but I suppose, Lloyd, in a position where you're kind of worried that you're going to lose Nomlum for not very much, the crazy move becomes a more reasonable option, because were you to get the swarm to fly past you, that would have been huge.
Yeah, the risk of half a damage to completely arc dodge a swarm and then have an active auto blaster feels like, had the 4K fit, I feel like there's about 90% chance I would have dialed it in. But unfortunately, yeah, just clips the edge of that rock.
And so we get the opening shot here from Goran himself. Gets his range 1 bonus taken away by Kannan, only rolling the 1 hit. And remembering how to roll dice in the last game, Nomlum opening up from 1 evade. Takes the lock there on that range 1 ship. So decided not to shoot last turn when there were only 2 shots coming in. But obviously, Dale, at this point, you're going to have to take these shots, right? You can't not fire all game.
No, this is that moment where this had to go well against Nom, and it's the best chance to do that. With you've got 5, one of them's bumped him, and the other 5 have got some good shots in.
Absolutely. Kannan next up. Only the side arc. Has a choice of shots. We've got a focus evaded striker there, unobstructed at range 2, or some obstructed shots into the interceptors. I think you end up going for Nash here, Lloyd. You quickly tell us why you made that choice.
Yeah, so the shot into the striker, it has 2 agility and an evade and a focus. So my best case is stripping the focus so the return shot is less damaging, but I still have Kanan's ability for that if I need it. Nash is the ship that stops me initiative killing things with Fen. So taking Nash off the table makes Fen much more potent.
Yeah, and also you get the opportunity that did you have to spend the focus, that would have been reducing incoming damage on the thing that's going to be focus fired. But as it is, with those 4 agility, able to roll out, and we are down to Nash's shot. Stop here to have a little bit of a think about Kannan, and you decide not to go for it, which I think is sensible. There's a lot more shots coming in, a lot more opportunity to spend it, and you get that little bit more information about whether you want to use it to potentially keep Nom alive, or whether Kanan's going to save it for himself.
It's twofold. It's Kannan can then use it to protect himself from the striker shot, and also I want Nash to be tempted to spend his focus. So the more dice he has, the more likely he is to spend.
Perfect. And so we see that here. It does indeed spend his focus for 2 hits. Nom rolling another evade, but does take a damage, and that is the first shield gone. Yeah, and so what we're going to see here is the target lock switch, and obviously that's significant because Goran was at range 1, Proton Torp not an option, and now all of a sudden a tokenless Nash is sat at range 2, staring down the barrel of a Proton Torpedo. Continuing here, this is the striker shot into Kannan. Kannan deciding to sort of save himself, and maybe didn't even need to worry about it. Rolls the 2 evades, it doesn't take any damage. And we are down to your final 3 shots, Dale, and with 8 health left on Nom, it's looking a little bit touch and go as to whether he's going to live through this turn. Probably going to make it through, but you never know. First shot coming here from the Alpha Squadron pilot. 2 hits. Chip another one through. Taking a bit more damage than previously, but not taking lumps of damage so far. 2 dice in here from the Academy pilot. Spending there very sensible at this point. We think we know where the Proton Torpedo is going. Yet another 1 damage done, and we're shields down onto Nomlum. So Pink not going to kill him, but maybe has the opportunity to sort of make him worried about his ability to survive through the next turn. Hit crit, not bad at all. Weapons disable would be nice here. Ooh, but 2 evades. And Nomlan shrugs off the entire swarm, having only taken shields. That is not bad, and we now have Proton type coming back into Nash. I'm getting flashbacks to the previous game, Dale.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to have unloaded a whole swarm's worth in, and albeit only single modded, and to do 3 shields was a bit disappointing.
Yeah, completely. I think it was that combination of you rolled slightly below average and I rolled above average. And those 2 things combined means that Nom is looking very healthy as we come into this shot.
And I am fully expecting Nash to die here, but not a good initial roll. Having to spend the lock here. For 3 hits. No shield upgrades on these guys. We need to see some paint. Oh, and we do. 1 evade, so still hit crit coming through. And that's a fuel leak, which with 1 health is pretty meaningless. And on to the next turn. Right then, Dale. Good initial approach, I think. Reasonable first target. You've achieved what you wanted to. You've scared sort of Fen out of the fight. Probably even next turn, it's hard for him to come in, and you've got that good round of fire into Nomlum, but you haven't got the reward that you were maybe expecting. What happens now?
Well, I think now Nom is still the target, and hoping that you don't get 2 rounds of unlucky like that. And I guess this is where Goran kicks in again, because now all the bumps are far more likely. So this is just a case now of working out the order of events so that we can still get as many shots on Nom as possible.
Yeah, I think we've already seen the value of Goran in this list, right? But it's this turn we're coming into now where you're really going to see it shine, because the potential here is every single ship in your list could bump, and yet every single ship in your list could end up with a focus, which feels like incredible value.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lloyd, from your point of view, again, hard to see where Nom goes. You do still have that contraband, and maybe the K turn. This turn is slightly more of a possibility, although obviously with Goran, it's the easiest thing in the world for that TIE fighter to stay exactly where it is. I think I probably would keep that TIE fighter still. I think I quite like that as a move. Green, maybe. Dale, were you considering the sloop here? Sloop to the right? Do require Nom to move a little bit to get in arc, but it's going to allow you to chase him the next turn? Or is there sort of something cleverer that you can do?
Yeah, I mean, my main thing here was just to get the bump still on Nom, but still keep as many arcs as possible. So I think I was trying to be clever with setting pink up for double mods again was mainly what was going through my head, I think.
And that's interesting, isn't it? That's the kind of potential downside of anything like this.
You just chase the trick. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw me getting really confused and overcomplicated with Jake last week, and having talked about the power of Goran and how nicely you've flown it so far, definitely, spending 90% of the planning for this turn working out how pink gets an additional action probably isn't worthwhile. We'll see if that becomes problematic. And Lloyd, from your point of view, so yeah, Nomlum, not really anywhere to go. Hawk's looking like quite an obvious choice, and Fen, I don't know. It feels like keep running.
Yeah, I was quite happy with where Kannan is because he's now got the ability to get around behind Dale's list and essentially take free shots for the next turn or two, while also bringing his arc around to protect Nom from that. I mean, he only has one force point, but he can still offer some protection to Nom by making Dale's best shot one fewer die. So I'm quite happy with where Kannan is. Fen is still in a position where he can threaten a turn in, and so Dale has to consider it. And as we see here, the blue striker turning out or banking out to try and cover that. But Fen is still just running, and all the time he can pull some of Dale's ships out of position to do so, that just makes Nom and Kanan's job easier. And I'm still really of a mindset that I just want to trade Nom for something in this list. And now the fact that Nash is on 1, it's going to be very hard for Goran and Nash to initiative kill Nom. He's got just enough health left that he's almost certainly going to survive. He's taking a maximum of 7 dice from those 2 ships. So if I can trade Nom for Nash, I'm down on points, but I'm pretty happy with that position because now Fen and Kannan can initiative kill other ships on the table.
Yeah, I think that all sounds very sensible. And Dale, I think we're starting to see here the kind of overcomplicating that you're talking about. It looks like blue's come out. Yes, pressuring Fen there, although actually I think probably you'd have been better off just leaving blue exactly where he was. He could have got his focus for bumping and cleared his stress, stayed there, and actually is a bit further back from Fen, which as we all know is better.
Yeah.
Green, were you bringing him into a position to get pink bumping and then kind of thought better of it?
Yeah, it got far too close to the asteroid, and I was like, this isn't worth it for the trick. So I got him out of the way to set him up to chase Fen next turn.
Yeah.
But really, should have just stayed in the fight with Nom. And then Pink did end up bumping and getting the focus anyway, but I've bumped into Nom with him.
And Paul, you mentioned about the K turn for Nom, and I did think about it. The reason I decided not to go for it is because, again, I can't control where Dale's going to block me. He has the potential to bail everything else out and block me with Nash, and then, at which point he blocks me onto a rock and I get no shot at all. So just took a conservative option and just turned left, which did nothing.
I think that's sensible, and I think I probably, Dale, would have done the same thing as you, but actually what's happened here is that you're going to get 2 fewer shots than you did last time because your bumper from last round has flown over the top and Green's got himself out of position. And all of a sudden, it's probably still should kill Nom, but it's much less likely than had you just kept blue where he was, bumped everything into everything else, and then Nom's looking like he doesn't live to see another turn.
Yeah, because if blue had stayed, I would have bumped into blue instead of Nom, and then I've got a bunch more single modded shots going in, haven't I?
Absolutely, and we've seen from the last game with Kannan on the board, his power's going up and up as there's less shots coming into Nomlum here, and I slightly worry about your ability to take him off the board even this turn. But still, got a good amount of ships left on the table. Fen, I'm presuming, is running away, and Green is at least in a nice position to chase the next turn, as you said, as blue is. So we see that straight mover from Fen, not messing about, boosting around the corner, gives him lots of options for next turn. With that gas cloud, it's quite a nice position for the hard turn in next turn. He probably not worrying about blue and green so much anymore, and maybe has the opportunity to come in, especially if Nash dies here and put some pressure on these ships that are still in the centre of the board. Obviously, no shot from Kannan, and we are down to Goran. Goran bumped here, no action for him at range 1. And Lloyd letting him take the shot, I presume there because he didn't have the mod?
Let's say yes, it happened really quickly in reality.
Okay. Fine. And a nice hit crit, but more good of A dice. Wow. From Nomlum. Takes the crit. And thank God takes a reduced agility because, man alive, he has been rolling a lot of evade. Yeah, I was watching a stream earlier on and joking that if you rush into your attack dice, you prevent your opponent using Kannan. That's definitely a valid technique, viewers. Kannan here with a shot of his own. Obviously, not only has he got an amazing ability, he is a hawk with Mouldy Crow. So 3 dice out the front, spends one of his stored focus tokens, gets hit, crit, and I believe that is a dead Nash. That's a crit going through.
But not dead yet.
But not dead, yeah, absolutely. So Kannan at I3. However, Nash's ability kicks in. Why don't you read that out for us, Dale, and just remind everybody?
During the engagement phase, after a friendly ship at range 0 to 3 is destroyed, if that ship has not engaged this phase, you may spend 1 charge, and that ship will engage at the current initiative.
Nice, and that's a recoverable charge, but that is obviously not going to be relevant with Nash leaving the board after this shot. Nash does get his attack reduced. Hit crit and another evade. God, Dale, I worry for you the next time you face one of these things again.
I've always hated these 1.0, 2.0. They don't get any better.
You're not wrong, to be fair. And it's weird as well from watching this back how disheartening it is to kill Nash for then him to steal trigger and get a shot. And I say that as someone who was running Kane in this game, but it's really genuinely disheartening when you're like, oh great, I've killed this ship that enables all of these abilities. And it's like, oh, but it works on myself as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think I feel more sorry for Dale than I do for you.
I think that's fair.
But I agree. So Nash coming off the board there did add a console fire before he went. Might be relevant later in the game. And we're now out of Kannan charges, so an actual proper range 1 attack from this Academy pilot. Hit crit. No evades. So 2 more damage going in. 2 left, but no more shots coming in. So we've got Nomlum down to 2. The final crit he takes, I believe, is a fuel leak. But he's still on the board and now gets to take his shot. And in amongst all of that, picked up a target lock on to Commandant.
Yeah, I think the timing was slightly off. I'd forgotten to reveal the card, but Dale was good enough to let me go back and do it.
So final shot here from Dale. That's Planetary Sentinel, 2 dice into Kannan, and only 1 evade there. So starting to chip some damage off Kannan. The plus side of Kannan is that it is only that 5 health. The token stack is nice. The ability, obviously, we've seen over these 2 games, is looking pretty incredible. But he should go down to focus fire.
I'd completely forgotten that the pink Sentinel had a shot on Kannan in my eagerness to get a target lock on Nash and take him off the board. And had I paid attention and seen that, I probably would have saved a force that I used to help Nom to protect Kannan.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, target lock used to good effect. Hit, crit. And oh my god, a blank out from Goran there. And not only is Nomlum still alive, he has just taken the most important part of Dale's list off the board in 1 shot. We got the console fire coming in at the end there, and obviously, given how the game's going on, it did not trigger. Oh, Dale, this looks like it's not going well.
It is not going well now. Good proof of concept, though.
So we've seen the abilities trigger nicely. There were errors certainly on that turn, and important ones. You could have had another couple of shots at Nomlum. Nomlum would be dead. He'd still have got that shot though. But this game would look very different, I think, if you had 4 ships left on full health versus an already slightly damaged Kannan and a Fen who would still have to be worried. The fact that Nomlum's still on the board and now that K-turn next turn is safe makes me very worried, and I think there might be just a little bit too much for you to deal with, but we'll see. This is maybe a good opportunity. I think having seen how the first game went, going for Nomlum is a reasonable choice. Certainly you don't want to be ignoring something that's rolling around with proton torpedoes. But I wonder if the best chance of killing Kannan is when you've got the most ships on the board. And once you kill him, your damage output is going to go up. I wonder if, in hindsight, you should have gone for Kannan. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I think it was more that turn before, that was all the stars aligning to get some really good hits into Nom. And at that point, Kannan was behind him. And then I've just committed to try and push him over the ledge, which has let Kannan get behind me. Kannan is definitely what stops your damage output. I just feel from the last game, I guess I don't know really. It was just Vader not having fun time with him. But I kept thinking he was going to take too long to kill, but it's actually Nom that takes too long to kill.
Yeah, I think a part of it as well is making it difficult for you to get shots into Kannan. So in the initial engage, Kannan I think was just about out of range of maybe everything, maybe all but one ship, and then essentially fed you Nom, was sort of forced to feed you Nom with the board position and the ship types, but doing that allowed me to then get Kannan out and around the fight. So I think it's also an awareness of when you're running a piece, when you have a piece that is almost the center point of the list as Kannan is here, is making sure you have a way to keep him safe. And so in this matchup, I have two ships that I'm desperately trying to keep safe and one ship that I essentially don't care about. And thankfully that ship has rolled evades forever and is staying on the table. But it's all about keeping Kannan safe long enough to drag the game out and then keeping Fen alive long enough to be the end game ship.
Yep. Yeah, it's just dawning on me that the last two games I've had on the channel, I've made horrendous mistakes in both, and we've now got an episode where you're looking like winning 2 games in a row. I don't know how I've allowed that.
I'm sure it's never going to happen again.
You're damn right it's not. But having said that, you have done a really nice job of understanding what the target priority should be against your list, understanding the role of each ship in your list. And we've seen here, you haven't tried to get Fen engaged at all. You haven't worried about Kanan's damage output, really, only taking that front arc shot when it was completely safe to. And you've been very clear about the order in which stuff must engage. And yeah, you've probably got a bit luckier than you should have done given the dice, but you've given yourself the opportunity for that to happen in a way that if you just allowed Dale to pick what he was going for, this game may well be over already. So we see Nom Nom here, sloop rather than the K-turn, but similar effect, popping his contraband, taking his target lock. Still has a proton torpedo on board, but that pink striker looks like it may just be at range 1. Kannan continuing to come around the corner, has his arc protecting Nom, but Nom taking no shot. And you have a bit of a think about the action here and go for the rotate backwards. What was the thought process there?
So having said I've done a good job of keeping Fen safe, I now do the complete opposite and turn him in. And this is probably a good time to talk about getting slightly overconfident and how to lose a game from a winning situation. So Fen has been safe this entire game, and here's the piece I need in the end game. And I decided here to get aggressive and to roll in to get a range 1 fearless shot into the blue striker. With a reasonable chance to take it off the table, but not an incredibly high chance. And what it also does is opens me up to shots from certainly the green interceptor. And I had in mind that Fen was going to take some shots here. And so I make a second mistake and think that Kanan's rear arc is now going to cover Fen and give him Kanan's bonus. And we'll find out in a moment that I am wrong by quite some way.
Yeah, I got to say, it sort of never looked good. And I agree entirely. We were talking about, Fen getting involved once the ship count had gone down. And the ship kind of has gone down, to be fair to you. But it's the risk reward. He does not need to be in the fight at this point. You are winning by miles. And if he's on the other side of this gas cloud, he is safe. But nevertheless, you do roll forwards. I like that. It gives you the fearless and means that you didn't necessarily have to spend the focus, but you go ahead and roll all paint. Do spend the focus, and man alive, does that pay off. 1 evade here, and I believe that is a 1-shot for the second round in a row, and that planetary sentinel off the board. Dale, it's looking like this green interceptor is going to have to do some serious damage to Fen here to keep you in this game. Possibly got range from pink. We shall see in a moment. We now get the Kannan arc, and yeah, you're out by a good range band. And we're down to a range 3 shot, but into a tokenless Fen. This needs to hit big. Right, get the 2 dice out. But realize you actually get to roll all 3 this time.
Yeah.
Hit, crit, nice. This is what you want to see. Oh, but Fen. Wow, that feels undeserved. I hope you don't mind me saying, Lloyd.
No, I think if you hadn't said it, I would have, to be fair.
Yeah, and no consequences, and even pink slightly out. God, and still Nom to shoot. This is not going well. So range 1, auto blasters now on. because Nom is now in that perfect position behind Dale's list. Any crits here are unblockable. We get the console fire, does not trigger. Still alive on 2. And I was fully expecting that to be triple crits, but no, only the 1 hit. But does chip a damage through. And for the second game in a row, Dale, this has not gone your way.
No, a lot of new lists and a lot of trying is not necessarily winning the game. It's learning the pros and cons of your list and what you're flying against as well. So they've always got value.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is such a good point. We can see from game 1 to game 2 that the approach, the target priority, the awareness of what is on Lloyd's list, that's all improved. And although turn 2 of this engagement was not perfect and was probably slightly overcomplicated, you may well be in a much better position in this game than you are. And as you say, from a learning point, next time when I fly Jake, I will keep it simple. You, I'm assuming, will do the same if you take this list again.
That's right. I will be taking Nom on this.
Joking aside, having flown the 2 lists, what's your kind of thoughts about both of them? Was the first game enough to put you off the i6 list? And has this game shown you enough to kind of be keen on the Swarm?
I actually really like both still. Having flown the 3 aces for as long as I can remember, Sienna is at the very least equal trade for Duchess. They do different things, but to have the i6 to soften up a target before the other 2 is definitely worth it. So it will do the same stuff. And then on the other side of the fence, this list, I really like the way it all works together, and you get that forgiveness for flying a Swarm, which I really like as well. So no, I really like both lists, 100%.
Yeah, it feels like the best Swarms are the ones that have passive mods and/or are forgiving, right? And
yeah,
I think with Goran, it is essentially passive mods in that you can always get yourself a focus, and it's forgiving in that if you get initiative killed, you can just fix it with Nash.
Yep.
So I think it's got some real potential. I think there's some optimization to be done on the list, but that's always the case, isn't it, with new content?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Fen, looking like me might be in a spot of bother here. We've got some nice blocking positions in, but a really nice choice by Lloyd, choosing to keep the stress, going for the 5 straight there. It gets blocked by the back TIE fighter, but has no incoming fire. So starting off with the range 3 side arc shot from Kannan, just the 2 dice into 4 from this TIE fighter. Shouldn't do much. Goes to spend the focus and upsettingly remembers that he's got 4s. Dale having to spend the focus to get the 2 evades there. We get a console fire trigger. Nom Nom rolling around with stress is going to keep doing this until he clears it. And on this occasion it hits, so he's down to 1. And then he has a choice of targets, but has the target lock set up from the prior turn and 1 set of proton torps left. Ooh, and a nice roll. And I think we had a striker here that clipped the gas cloud, so no actions. Already taken 1 damage, and indeed was strained, and it is now dead. And at that point, you sensibly decide to call the game. So congratulations, 2 wins in a row. Not bad at all. And I think before we go, a good opportunity to just run through the new pilots. Sienna, I think I agree, Dale. I think there's value there. I think the thing I'd add that I haven't heard anyone really say is you don't need to get stressed. Getting an interceptor double stressed is a disaster, but you can shoot first. You cannot take shots if you think it's going to be a massive problem. And equally, you don't have to link actions, and you can just make it be the only stress you take that turn, in which case the interceptor's got almost the best dial in the game for getting rid of it. Lloyd, we'll talk to you about Kannan. What's your feeling? He's looked pretty good.
Yeah, he definitely feels incredible. He feels so good to the point that if I was looking at running this list, I would be looking for things to cut on Nom so that I could add a hull upgrade to Kannan just to keep him alive longer, because that ability is game changing. I think, as we said coming into this game, perhaps less so as ship counts go up, but as ship counts go up, Kanan's initiative becomes less and less of a problem, and Fen becomes scarier. So, yeah, I think for me, Kannan is certainly the standout piece from the scum pack early on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a few of the Hawks have got really interesting possibilities. Kanan's maybe the most obviously good, And yeah, he looks terrifying. We played a practice game prior to the first game against Dale, and I had the same experience where I didn't have enough heavy hitting ships on the board to do any damage. And Dale, I kind of stole your thunder with Sienna, but Goran and Nash here in this list, I think they look pretty good, don't they?
Definitely. No, Goran and Nash, I think, are brilliant. And getting that right mix of the 5 or 6 ships with those two is a great basis, I think. Nash protecting the lower initiative pilots, which you need because you need quantity. And then Goran helping give them that underlying reliability of always being able to focus regardless. I think it's a great mix. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just list building a little bit, and I think the problem I saw in your list is the lack of double mods, right? Because interceptors and TIE fighters do tend to explode sometimes, and so you need to get the maximum offensive value out of them. So Nash and Goran, both with Predator, you can stick a shoot upgrade on Nash because if he dies, the list potency drops quite significantly. And then around that, 3 Black Squadron strikers, so they can all take Predator as well. So then you've got a 5-ship list, all with Predator, all with focuses for as long as they want. I think that sounds like, as I can see at the moment, maybe the best version of this list.
Yeah, I think the other thing to look at is Ruthless, right? That is a good way of sorting your offensive output out, and also with Nash, killing stuff is a little bit less worrying than it may otherwise be. So I think that's another potential way of achieving the same thing, which is to have a similar list but with more consistent offensive output. And I think that probably kind of sums up the game, sums up the bits of the new content that we were looking at. Anything that either of you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
My main takeaway actually from today was I'm not surprised we got a George Orwell quote on the channel. I am surprised that Dale was the first one to reference him.
Well, on that very rude note, I'd say goodbye. Thanks for all the feedback we've been getting for the videos. Glad you guys are enjoying them. And I hope that you've enjoyed this look at the new content as much as you did the last one. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time when we are back to competitive X-Wing to look at a recent game from our very own world champion, Ollie Pocknell. We'll see you then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.